Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. Australia begins mourning after a father and son carry out a deadly shooting at Jewish celebration at Sydney Bondi Beach, killing 16 people including the shooter. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese calls it a dark moment for our nation as authorities describe the attack as targeted anti-Semitic violence. Hong Kong's High Court finds pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai guilty of sedition and collusion with foreign forces under a China-imposed security law. The verdict, which could carry a life sentence, draws international criticism amid concerns over Hong Kong's rule of law. Security experts say Ukraine's offer to drop its NATO bid is unlikely to significantly shift peace talks with Russia. President Zelensky says security guarantees from the US and Europe would serve as a compromise in place of NATO membership. Syria says it arrests 5 suspects linked to a shooting in Palma that kills 2 US soldiers and a civilian interpreter. Authorities say the attacker, who is shot dead, is a member of the security forces suspected of sympathizing with Islamic State. US media report film director Rob Reiner and his wife are found dead at their Los Angeles home. Police say 2 people are found dead at the residence but have not confirmed identities or named any suspects. A special prosecutor in South Korea indicts former President Yoon Suk-yeol and 23 others on insurrection charges, officials have said. Prosecutors allege Yoon sought to provoke North Korea to justify a martial law declaration and crack down on political opponents. Nvidia says it is considering boosting production of its H200 AI chips after demand from Chinese tech companies exceeds current supply. The move follows a US decision to allow H200 exports to China with a 25% fee, though Beijing has yet to approve purchases. Roomba maker iRobot files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and says it will go private after being acquired by its manufacturer. The company cites intense competition and new US tariffs as it struggles to stay in business. Now we start with our top story of the day, and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has laid a floral tribute at Bondi Pavilion as Australia mourns victims of its worst gun violence in almost 30 years. Residents of Sydney have also left flowers for the victims of the Bondi Beach attack that killed 16 people, including one of the suspected gunmen. Meanwhile, Jews have paid their tributes to victims in different parts of the world. Israeli and Australian Jews have held a candle-lit vigil, placing nightlights in the shape of a Star of David in Tel Aviv. In Washington, D.C., the national menorah has been lit, honouring the victims of the attack and marking the beginning of Hanukkah. In France, dozens of French Jewish people have gathered near the Australian embassy to show solidarity with the victims of the attack. People in London have also held a vigil outside the Australian High Commission before lighting the menorah. Let's in fact listen in to what some members of the Jewish community from around the world have had to say on the attack.
And our response precisely at these moments of fear has to be the opposite. Not to cower in fear, not to separate ourselves, not to scatter, but to come together in love and in solidarity.
This is a very tough time for our community. We have lost a rabbi, we have lost friends, we've lost children. And it's heartbreaking to see you all here supporting us. I have no words, so thank you. Out of darkness comes light, so let's all pray for peace and strength and healing for the community in Sydney.
is quite shaken. People are broken. People are overwhelmed. But at the same time, we're resilient. We find ourselves during the festival of Hanukkah, which is about bringing light. It's about, we don't light the candle in our dining room. We light the candle near the window. We light the candle in a public beach. We light the candles everywhere because we want to spread that light. And that light was last night by terrorists tried to put out that light. We're not going to allow them to put out that light. Tonight, we're going to light 2 candles. And tomorrow night, we're going to light 3 candles because that's the way we do things. That's the way we as a community hold together, support each other, and stick to the mission of making the world a better place.
Les symboles du judaïsme sont aujourd'hui attaqués partout dans le monde. Et on voulait se rassembler aujourd'hui très spontanément pour montrer notre soutien à la communauté juive australienne, mais aussi dénoncer l'antisémitisme, dénoncer le terrorisme.
We heard the news of this terrible, horrific terrorist attack in Australia just a few hours ago, and our hearts shattered to pieces to hear about our brothers and sisters, some of the community members we have known personally, and we cannot think of anything else than the main message, the core message of this holiday for 2,000 years is that even a little light can win over a lot of darkness. There's no greater darkness than people just taking a rifle and killing innocent people at a religious event. And many people get scared and get afraid and don't know what to do in such a situation. I believe we have to show an example of light wherever we are, to stand up for our values, for our principles, for the holiday of Hanukkah, light the candles of Hanukkah and light up the darkness. And at the end, the light will definitely prevail.
Gedaliah Blum joins us now. He's a Middle East affairs expert. Gedaliah, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Obviously a great tragedy yesterday coming out of Sydney. The Jewish board in New South Wales has called this attack a massacre. From a Jewish community's perspective, how do you think this event will change daily life, particularly for that community in Sydney? Schools, synagogues, public gatherings like we saw yesterday, etc.
Well, unfortunately, this is not the first time we're seeing this. We saw this in Manchester just a couple of months ago, and I believe that there is a difference between. I just want to make a point. There's a difference between the Jewish diaspora outside of Israel and the Jews inside of Israel. The Jews inside Israel, we have a state, we have an army, we have a government that that protects us. Now, when it comes to the Jews outside of Israel, we've seen in Australia, we've seen in England, we've seen in a number of other countries where we've seen violence and massacres like this, is that the governments in which these Jews live in have failed. They failed to do their two most obligations, which is to secure their borders and to protect their citizens. And Australia is neither doing any of these things. And so when the Jews are talking about bringing more light into this world, we're not going to let this extinguish us, and we're going to keep moving forward. It's very nice, it's very heartfelt, but I'll tell you this. This is a very diaspora Jewish thing to say, because when you live under another country's rule, you become much more timid. You can't have a very loud voice. There was a loud voice that came, and I don't know if anybody saw the interview with my friend Arsen, who actually just moved from Israel to Australia, and he was interviewed on Sky Australia with a bloodied head and a bloodied face. And what he said was, we're going to get these bastards. He's coming from a different perspective, is that you have to go after these people. And I'll say, when it comes to Hanukkah, about that it's the Festival of Lights, I would actually say that the lights are secondary. The primary celebration of Hanukkah is the war against Greece. Greece who was trying to erase Jewish identity. And the Maccabees came and fought with extremism against them and won against this huge army. And I see that's the battle that we need to fight today, and that we need to get the strength of the Maccabees for the Jews in the diaspora, not just talk about that this is a festival of lights, but this is a festival to commemorate the strength of the Jews. Despite how small we are as a people, we need to rise up and we need to fight against this. And if countries like Australia, England, Canada, France cannot protect its Jews, then they need to really reconsider where they want to actually have a future.
Get Alive, we've got some breaking news coming in actually, related to the incident, of course. The two gunmen have now been named. Previously it was just the son. We knew it was a father and son duo. The 50-year-old father who died at the scene, and his 24-year-old son. Local media has named them as Sajid and Navid Akram, respectively. Now, moving back to the conversation, what do you think Jewish communities now want from governments and societies? Of course, we've seen Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticize Prime Minister Albanese's treatment and handling and security lapses in judgment when it comes to this situation. What does the Jewish people around the world now want from governments, especially since we've seen this wave of anti-Semitic attacks, particularly, of course, since October the 7th?
Well, I'll say this. Number one is that Albanese came out and said he was shocked at what he saw. And for me, it's almost as like somebody who sees other people smoking 3 packs of cigarettes for 50 years and all of a sudden gets cancer, and they're shocked that they have cancer. We saw on October 8th, the day after the massacre, while it was still happening actually, on the Gaza envelope, that in Melbourne there was tens of thousands of people out chanting, "Gas the Jews, globalize the Intifada." Before even one IDF boot even hit the ground in Gaza, they were already talking about killing the Jews. They've known this. They've been scared. They've been hijacked by their own people. They've been hijacked by their own tolerance. They've been tolerant to the intolerant. So my message to these governments on behalf of Jews is, Jews are the canary in the coal mine. If you cannot protect your Jews, you cannot protect your whole country, because if they think that by placating these jihadis and bringing people in who outrightly stand and sit at the pulpit of their mosque and talk about jihad, physical jihad,
okay,
and they think it's not going to affect them. So okay. I'll say this to the government, that if you can't protect your Jews, you realize that they're going to come after you. Your country is going to completely fall apart and fall into the dark ages, just like every other, right now, many other Muslim countries in this world who are just third world countries. And we're taking first world countries and then we're bringing them back. So these governments need to wake up.
Okay, Gedaliah, do stay with us as we have further updates, this time coming out of the Middle East. And the Israeli military says it killed 3 Hezbollah operatives in separate drone strikes across southern Lebanon, despite an ongoing ceasefire with the group. The Israel Defense Forces say the strikes targeted Hezbollah members who violated the November 2024 truce by restoring military infrastructure and operating in restricted areas. Lebanese health officials confirmed 3 deaths in strikes on the villages of Yotar, Safed al-Betik and Joyaya. The IDF identified one of those killed as Zakira Yahya al-Hajj, described as a senior Hezbollah figure who allegedly ran agents within Lebanon's security services. Israel says the attacks aim to prevent Hezbollah from rearming and threatening its northern border. The strikes come as Israel maintains troops in 5 strategic southern zones and continues operations it deems as being defensive. Gedaliah joins us once again. Gedaliah, Israel says these drone strikes were defensive, yet since the November 2024 truce, the United Nations and Lebanese sources have recorded hundreds of Israeli strikes inside Lebanon, resulting in dozens of deaths. How does that square with a ceasefire?
Well, I mean, the Israeli intelligence just came out, the IDF came out, I think, yesterday, and they released that there was 1,800 reported violations of this quote-unquote ceasefire. But it was a ceasefire agreement. Again, the agreement is that south of the Litani River, that Hezbollah needed to not be there. They need to not rebuild and rearm, and that's exactly what they're doing. So the agreement doesn't really mean anything. And I actually want to bring up a different point, is that how exactly is Israeli intelligence be able to identify and to target these high-level Hezbollah people? And I don't have any inside information, but it's very easy to assess that when you live in a fear society, when the government, like, let's say,
Israel continues to maintain troops in 5 Lebanese zones despite the ceasefire. Under international law, does that not itself constitute as a violation of the truce terms as well?
No, actually, I think it's actually necessary in order to create a buffer zone, because as long as Hezbollah is rearming on the Israeli border, we need to push that border further north away from our communities.
Okay.
We saw what happened on October 7th, and we're not willing to let that happen again.
UNIFIL has reported that both sides are undermining this ceasefire, but that Israel has overwhelming air and firepower advantage, of course. Does that create a disproportionate responsibility on Israel to de-escalate first?
No, absolutely not. I think that when you live in this type of neighborhood, when you have force, you use it. Thank God, Israel's the one who has the force and not Hezbollah. Because if Hezbollah had the force, there would be no Israel. Because Israel has the force, there's still Lebanon. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to pacify them by using very targeted strikes and not on civilians. And as you can see, these 3 targeted strikes actually hit the target without any collateral damage. We're very deliberate in everything that we're doing. We're very responsible according to international law. And I think that this should be a lesson to the world to say Israel being strong is what is going to create and maintain peace. And the Lebanese government itself understands this, because they understand that Hezbollah is a cancer within their country who's ripping it apart. And the Lebanese government is, they're not pushing too far back against the activities of the IDF. They are making public statements against, but this is for public consumption only, in order that the weapons don't turn from Hezbollah onto the Lebanese government. But they do see this deadline of complete disarmament of Hezbollah as a significant challenge, and that the IDF is actually doing the work for them.
Okay, Gedaliah, do stay with us as we have further updates, but this time coming out of the Gaza Strip. And the chief negotiator of Hamas has stated that the recent assassination of its senior commander could threaten the feasibility of the Gaza ceasefire plan. He has also called on the mediators, and especially the United States administration and President Donald Trump, to urge Israel to comply and follow the terms of the truce, so agreed between the parties earlier in October. On Saturday, thousands of Hamas supporters rallied in central Gaza City, holding a funeral for the senior command and 3 other associates that were killed alongside him. Hamas sources have described Raed Sayed as the second in command of the militant group's armed wing. Meanwhile, Israeli forces say that he was one of the key masterminds behind the October the 7th attacks on Israel, which triggered the war in 2023. Since the ceasefire has been implemented, Israeli forces remain in control of the eastern half of Gaza, which has been depopulated significantly. Moreover, the Hamas has regained its control over the western half, where 2 million people reportedly live in the ruins, with many under harsh conditions. Gedaliah, Israel says that Sayed was a mastermind of the October the 7th attack. If that's the case, why was he not targeted during active warfare and only killed after this truce was agreed?
I mean, first and foremost, how do we know he wasn't targeted? Just because he wasn't killed doesn't mean he wasn't targeted. As great as the Israeli army is, these people hide within tunnels in civilian populations. Perhaps he hid amongst school children, and we didn't target him, knowing full well that school children would be killed. We don't know. But when it comes to this ceasefire, let's be very clear. This is Trump's 20 or 21-point plan. The first stage requires Hamas to step down and disarm. They haven't done so. So when we're targeting Hamas members who weren't, part of the planning of the architects of October 7th, they're open season on them. There's no reason why, even with this agreement, that Israel doesn't have every responsibility and obligation to eliminate these people.
Under most ceasefire frameworks, assassinations are considered material violations unless an imminent attack is proven. Does Israel have any evidence that Syed posed an immediate and not a historical threat?
Well, let's say this, okay? We're not talking. You just said in your own words that Hamas is regaining control over Western Gaza. That in of itself is a threat. That in of itself is a threat to us. Now, it may not be a loaded gun pointed at its own head, but we understand.
So not an imminent attack, not an imminent threat.
It's not, no, but there's certainly a different threshold that Israel's now dealing with with Hamas. Hamas has been seen as an imminent threat, obviously, since October 7th, and we also see as part of this agreement that they were meant to disarm and step down because they are an imminent a threat. Now, if they do not, that threat remains, and they are a target. They're a legitimate target. So yes, we have every right, even during an agreement, to continue targeting and killing Hamas leadership, 100%.
Okay, Gedaliah Bloom, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to talk to you, as always. We now move over to Latin America, and Chile has elected its most far right-wing president in 35 years of democracy, with Jose Antonio Cast securing a victory over his leftist runoff rival. Cast won some 58% of the vote and held a dominating lead over Janet Jara, a communist leader who headed a broad leftist coalition in the presidential elections. The new president-elect has campaigned on a promise to expel more than 300,000 immigrants from the country and further seal the northern border, taking firm measures on the increasing crime rates. After the results were announced, he addressed his supporters and vowed to restart the country's economy. Let's take a listen in to the new Chilean president.
Restablecer la ley. Vamos a restablecer el respeto a la ley en toda la región.
Additionally, Chile's president, Gabriel Boric, has also congratulated Cast, saying that he is hopeful that Cast will work on strengthening the democratic institutions in the country. Let's take a listen in to the current president.
La ciudadanía ha dado su veredicto y ha elegido como presidente de la República a José Antonio Cast, con quien me comuniqué hace algunos momentos para felicitarlo por su triunfo, para desearle éxito durante los 4 años que vendrán y para comprometer todo nuestro apoyo como gobierno en el proceso de traspaso de funciones.
Meanwhile, supporters of the far-right candidate gathered in the capital city of Santiago to celebrate his win, claiming that migrants coming to the country need to be monitored. Let's take a listen in.
Muy contento porque la alternancia del poder es la clave para la renovación de la política, para la renovación de los poderes, para que lleguen los mejores calificados. Después de que un gobierno no hizo buena pega, es bueno ir cambiando y alternando a la gente que está trabajando en el gobierno.
Entonces confiamos plenamente de que él sea la persona que vaya a regularizar esto y que principalmente, mira, que lleguen los inmigrantes al país, que lleguen, pero regularizado como debe ser.
We now move on and over to the Indo-Pacific, and South Korean prosecutors have indicted former President Yoon Suk-yeol and 23 others over alleged martial law plotting, accusing Yoon of attempting to provoke North Korea into armed aggression. The special prosecutor says the aim was to justify a martial law declaration in December last year and eliminate political opponents. Prosecutors alleged Yoon and senior officials planned for months to suspend Parliament and replace it with an emergency legislative body. They say covert actions were taken to inflame tensions with Pyongyang, but the plan failed when North Korea did not respond militarily. Yoon is already on trial for insurrection, a charge that carries a possible life sentence or even the death penalty. Yoon has denied any wrongdoing, insisting his martial law decree was lawful and meant to counter political deadlock, not seize power. Joining us now is Colonel Sanjit Sirohi, an international relations and defence expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us. How extraordinary is this situation, especially in a country like South Korea? Those months were rife with political instability. South Korea seems to be somewhat stable now. A democratically elected president accused of trying to provoke a foreign war, less to say Pyongyang, to justify a martial law declaration. What's the significance behind this?
Thomas, first of all, we must understand that there are some people or some leaders who want to stay in the power by any hook or by crook. So that was the reason why President Yoon, he tried to justify his martial law. And by doing that, firstly, this has not been only in December 24, this has started from October 23, when he was planning to power of parliament and replace it with emergency legislative body. So that was the starting point. After that, when he also ordered his generals to carry out a covert drone operations in North Korea so that there are tension between both the countries and he could apply for the martial law. Subsequently, when he realized that he was not able to do that, then he, on December 24, he ordered martial law without any reason. But as far as he is concerned, he was talking that there were certain people, political parties in his in his own party who were anti-state forces. So that is why he was trying to justify, but the main reason what I thought was, and this is very, very exceptional and extraordinary for a country to ask the adversary to attack own country so that he can justify the law. I don't think this is, I think this was the first example in the world where you are asking adversary to attack you and for only to justify your martial law. So he has done that, but the North Koreans didn't respond to his request or his appeal. And after that, he could not justify it and he was immediately removed. And the new elections were held and the new president was appointed. So I think it is very, very exceptional case in the international politics that a president is asking an adversary to attack his own country. Thomas.
Yes, and do you think that South Korea has fully reeled out of this political instability, which it was in for months? How damaging is this case for South Korea's image as a stable democracy? Has Lee Jae-myung pulled them out of that situation, do you think?
No, I think it has brought down the image of South Korea as far as the democracy is concerned, because this thing happened in December and now we have seen it is almost 1 year. The South Koreans have not yet established themselves, and as far as the international image is concerned, South Korea democracy is being now seen as a suspicion by everyone. So let us see in the time to come if this president he is able to stabilize, then it is okay. Otherwise, it has set a very bad example in the eyes of any democratic country that the president can go to that extent where he is asking the adversary to attack his own country to justify his martial law. And I think the basic reason what I feel is that because his wife was involved in a corruption cases and it was under a lot of pressure from that side, but it has not been able to, the prosecutors have not been able to identify whether his wife was also involved in the conspiracy or not. But I think President Yoon was under a lot of pressure, and that's why he ordered the martial law, and subsequently that martial law was abolished and the new president. But definitely, as you have said, that the image of South Korea as a democratic country has gone down. Thomas.
Colonel Sirohi, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to hear you on this programme. Thank you for taking the time. We now move on and over to the United States, and according to reports, Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner have been found dead at their Los Angeles home. Early indications from sources suggest both suffered lacerations consistent with knife wounds. The Los Angeles Police Department confirmed 2 bodies were discovered in their Brentwood residence and has launched a homicide investigation. No details about the identities of the 2 deceased individuals are provided as of now. Rob Reiner rose to fame as Mike Meathead Stivich on the CBS sitcom All in the Family, and directed iconic films including The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Stand By Me, and A Few Good Men. He was also known for his political activism. His wife Michelle Singer Reiner was a photographer and captured the image of Donald Trump for his book Trump, The Art of the Deal. Authorities continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.